Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's the Collective Dismal here, and I'm currently driving in a snowstorm, and I thought this would be a good time to record a video, or an audio. I don't do videos, so record an audio for you all. I just got done work, and I've been working since 7 a.m. today, and it's 2 p.m., so I've clocked, a good 7 hours. Not bad. The time flew by because I was taking in so much. So many sights to behold. So many social interactions to be had. It really makes the time go by. Especially since I'm very underslept and overtired today, which that too can sometimes make the time go very quickly. You have like these insomniatic time lapses where, you're just kind of snapping in and out, and next thing you know, 2, 3, 4 hours has elapsed, and you just sort of fogged it out. So there are benefits to everything, but yeah, it's so interesting too. Like, I'm pretty much, my job at the moment is I work as like a glorified greeter, more or less. I'm like I more or less work at a help desk where I just point people in the direction that they need to go. And I see a lot of families, like hundreds of families. I interact with many a people. And so it gives me a really rare opportunity that none of these other black pillars, none of these other social commentators with our particular political outlooks or sociological outlooks, they don't have access to this just sheer quantity of anecdotes that I have. And all of my biases are confirmed and reaffirmed every single time I go to work and punch the clock. I gotta phrase this in a way that won't get me kicked off of YouTube, but these certain kids come in and they act so well behaved, like these white and Asian kids. They come up to me, "Excuse me, sir, do you have Wi-Fi here?" "Ah, yes we do, young man or young lady." "Would you like the password?" "Oh, I would really appreciate that so much. Oh, thank you." So, just really good manners, really well mannered for the most part. And then there are other kinds of kids that descend from other kinds of people. And the second they walk through the door, they don't even hesitate. They're just climbing on tables. They're turning door handles. If you don't lock every door in the facility, they're just testing every doorknob. They're climbing on stuff. They're kicking balls around. They're bouncing stuff off the wall. And it's even more pronounced with the mixed ones, where, I don't know, it's so awkward. It gives me this existential cringe, or this, I don't know how to explain it. This woman comes in and she's, of the same ethnicity as me. She's just kind of like a Britoner. And she's got a grandson, and he's a mulatto. He's like half, whatever. His head looks like a fucking pine tree. He looks like Carlito Caribbean cool or something like that. And this poor grandmother, she's trying to elicit some kind of help from me. And I'm trying to provide her assistance. And this kid is just literally like a monkey bouncing off of the walls, just touching everything. "Is this free? What is this? Can I go in there? Why is this locked?" They're pulling on the deadbolt. "Whose is this? Are these free?" Literally everything. They're kicking stuff. Unbelievable. And it's, again, it's not their fault. It's not like to blame them in a way where you fault them for this behavior is nonsensical. It's incoherent. It would be like trying to fault a baby for like throwing something out of the window of the car from the back seat. Like, yeah, you tell them don't do that or whatever, but like realistically, they don't know any better. You're trying to reason with like something that's fundamentally not capable. It doesn't have the cognitive capacity to know any better. It's like George Lincoln Rockwell said, like it's as if a bunch of monkeys had been let out of the zoo and given guns and liquor, and you wouldn't hate the monkey, but you'd certainly want it back in the zoo. And that's how I feel about this. And I'm like, it just immediately, as soon as this kid came in, and it's not this kid, there's like, I see a dozen examples of this a day, where it's like, I can tell, man, this kid is like, he's a problem, It just get my cortisol spike. I can never relax. I can never take a moment to relax, like when I know they're on the premises. And I think the mixed ones too, I got to be very careful because I don't want to get like kicked off of here, but the mixed ones are so much worse than like just like a purebred, Nigerian or whatever like that. They're a lot more cordial. They're a lot more mild-mannered. They're a lot more... Something about the mixing of like white blood with them is just a total recipe for the most antisocial personality, the most antisocial behavior that you can ever think of. So it's just really interesting, right? You can already tell, like, kids are young enough that they haven't had enough time to really be habituated, and so you can see what they really are. Like, you can see the heritable traits that they possess before they've had a chance for the environment to like really shape and mold them. You can see what they're working with at the level of hardware. And yeah, it's but that's not even the point of this video whatsoever. I just had to kind of like nest a different topic within this topic. We're going to be talking about something completely different. I'm going to be talking about tobacco. This video is going to be an ode to tobacco. So quite recently, I started smoking tobacco again. And I had not smoked tobacco, not even so much as a puff, not a single slip, not a single stutter step in 10 years, maybe more, but at least 10 years without any nicotine or tobacco in my system. And shout outs to Bix Nude and Rock Liquor. They got me back into smoking tobacco. They were like really hyping up pipe smoking. So we're going to get to that. I'm smoking tobacco in a different form than I ever had. I was a cigarette smoker, and I could smoke as much as like a pack a day when I used to smoke. And man, I really forgot how much I love tobacco. It really, truly is the white man's smoke of choice. There's no question about that. Like, right now, I just basically got home. I'm sitting outside of my house, and the first thing I'm going to do, I got some, tobacco drying on the counter, and I'm going to load that in my Peterson pipe, and I'm going to go and smoke that. And I've been thinking about that all morning, like just relishing in the anticipation of getting home and lighting this pipe up. And I went to the city yesterday. I had to go do something, take the family to a doctor's appointment. And I picked up a Peterson pipe and I refurbished it. It was an old vintage one that had been stored, but it was pretty much never smoked before. It was technically used, but it had never been smoked. And the sterling silver had tarnished on it. So I took a little, baking soda solution with a bit of water, and I just wiped it down, and it shined right up. It looked so sexy, so nice. And when I smoke tobacco, it's almost like an intimate experience. This is going to be an ode to tobacco because it is going to be almost like very poetic, what I'm going to say. I have a very romantic relationship with tobacco. That's hard to express in words. I guess if you're a smoker, you'll know what I mean, but I dream about tobacco when I go to bed at night. I dream about smoking. And even for the 10 years that I didn't smoke, the dreams persisted, albeit they became more infrequent as time went on, but I still had them. I had dreams where I would be smoking a ciggy or whatever. And I started smoking my first cigarette ever. I still remember it. It was I was about 11 years old. I'm not even kidding you. I was probably 11 years old, and I had some pretty bad friends. I ran with a pack of hoodlums when I was coming up because the teachers didn't like me because I was a non-neurotypical student. So I got tracked. And for those of you who don't know what that means, tracking is, I don't know if they still employ this strategy, but when I was going to school in the 90s, the mid to late 90s, tracking was a strategy that teachers would use where they identified problematic students and then grouped them all together. It was called ability grouping or tracking. And it was all the rave. This is what the oy vey experts were coming out with. You got to track your students. Keep the bad ones away. One bad seed ruins the whole apple. This type of crap, right? So they stuck me with some kids that were seriously bad. Kids from problem homes, kids some of whose parents were members of motorcycle gangs and stuff like this. And so I got a real quick lesson on the code of the street, the street rules or whatever. Not that I lived somewhere ghetto. I lived in suburban Canada, but I was around some kids I probably shouldn't have been, and those were my friends. And so it was it was only a matter of time till I was introduced to substances at a very young age, one of them being tobacco. I remember it quite vividly. My friend had stolen some cigarettes. He stole a pack of cigarettes from his parents, and we went to the park, 3 or 4 of us, and we went into the bushes, and we had a cigarette. I was given a cigarette, and I remember feeling wow, this is intense. I'm really Breaking Bad here. I'm really doing something that I shouldn't be doing at my age. This is crazy. And so we lit it up, and the thing tastes like pure kife. It tastes fucking awful, right? I was high off it. I was in a dream-like state, I remember getting this huge head rush. I didn't even know barely how to inhale the thing, but I didn't want to appear soft. I didn't want to appear like a puss, So I just did it. I went with it. And as time wore on, this became like more and more of a thing. We would get, but it was very hard for us to get cigarettes. We had to go to like extraordinary lengths in order to acquire them. I had a really good friend whose older sister, she was about 4 or 5 years older than him. And she worked at a convenience store, like a packy convenience store, like a corner bodega. And so we would sort of track the times when she was working, and we would go in there and she would sell us cigarettes. And that's we would get them like that, but it was hard to even get money for them, right? Because your parents would give you money, but then you'd have to like pretend you spent it on food and go hungry or whatever, but it was worth it. And so by the time I was 15, 16, now I'm in high school, I'm like in the freshman years or whatever. I'm a real smoker. Like I'm actually, in a community of like other kids who's some of their parents didn't care that they smoked even at like 14 years old. The parents were sort of like, I guess, a bit trashy in that way. They were just like, wow, whatever. They didn't really care what their kids were up to. My parents certainly would have. So I was always hiding it from them. But this added to the half of the nostalgia I feel when I'm smoking was about that time period where I was having to constantly hide the fact from my parents that I smoked. I'd have to walk 2 blocks to the park, and then I'd have to, try to air out my t-shirt, and I would all these different things, right? It made it more enjoyable because you went through more hoops in order to satisfy your fix, in order to get your fix, satisfy your craving. You had to like do all of these things and do it in secrecy. We'd go down behind the store, behind the mall, and we'd smoke or whatever. You always had to make sure you didn't leave your lighter lying around at home, or you didn't leave any tobacco in your pockets. You had to turn them out, like all these things kids do, right? But that really added to it. Like I love the rush of hiding it and sneaking and acquiring it. We would go into stores sometimes, and it was a lot less stringent back then. This was before we lived in like the full-blown nanny state that we have now. So you didn't have like bylaw officers all over the place constantly trying to like entrap store owners. So you could just give a store owner like $5 extra and he would sell us cigarettes before we were tall enough to see over the counter. It was even just in the early 2000s even was like a different world. We really have come a long way. We have really came, in a degraded sense. We've come a long way from that time. But fast forward, I'm a pack a day smoker. By the time I'm 20, I'm a pack a day smoker, like very heavy, 25. And a pack in Canada is 25. So I'm smoking, 25 cigarettes. I'm going through hundreds of cigarettes in a month. I'm going through, you could do the math, right? And that was sort of when I quit. Like, I won't go in too much to how I quit, but I just had this weird thing happen. The girl I was dating at the time, she was this Dominican girl. We were in a very serious relationship together, and she never cared that I smoked, really. Like, she never nagged me about it at all. And but one day, out of the clear blue sky, she came up to me, and she was kind of hysterical. Not kind of, she was hysterical. And she's like, you're gonna die, you're gonna get cancer, you're gonna die one day, you're gonna die from this and that, you're gonna die from smoking, you're giving yourself cancer. And I sort of like just shrugged it off at the moment. But it got to me for some reason. Something about that got to me. It just weighed on my mind. And after that, I couldn't really enjoy a cigarette the same way that I had before. Like, it was, I continued smoking for like maybe another week, but every one I had, I would think about that, and I would look at the thing, and I would think about these statistics. I don't know what prompted her to act so out of character in that instance, but she must have, seen some commercial, or she must have, whatever, right? Something kind of got her into this like panicked state. And so I'm like, you know what? I almost became scared of it in a weird way. Like I was like, I don't want to die from fucking cancer. I don't want to get lung cancer. And I just ditched it cold turkey. I think I used the patches, but I didn't wean off cigarettes. Like I just said, I'm done. And I got rid of it. And what transpired immediately afterwards was I gained a ton of weight, more than most people even do. But again, this also coincided with me getting into powerlifting too, which lifting heavy weights produces like this insatiable appetite for slop, for carbs, heavy carb, heavy meals, right? Heavy food dense, high glycemic foods. And I just ballooned. I just turned into a fucking blimp when I quit smoking. And not only that, but I developed this very intense addiction to coffee, which turned into, it set off a chain reaction in me that pretty much never ceased up till today. So I would try to like mitigate this with more exercise. I thought I could train it off. I thought I could like out train all the the caloric surplus, and I thought I could just every time I was going to have a cigarette, now I'm having a coffee instead, and that's got my heart all fucked up. I started that translated, I could no longer get the fix from coffee alone. It didn't have enough caffeine, so I developed an addiction to pre-workout supplements and amphetamines, stimulants, stuff like that, just to try to get these diminishing returns, just to try to keep up to the diminished returns from the caffeine addiction I had picked up when I quit smoking. My heart was less healthy. I didn't sleep as well anymore. And even when I used to be a heavy cigarette smoker, I was a marathon runner. I ran half marathons, like 5Ks and stuff like that. I loved running. I would just run and run and run and run and run. I was in the best shape of my fucking life when I was a cigarette smoker. And all of that went out the window. Here I was, I thought I was, prolonging my life, avoiding cancer, all of this. But my health dropped off a cliff when I quit smoking. And this is going to lead me to kind of the broader point I want to make, where I made a video in the past. This is before I went back to smoking. This is when I still hadn't gone back to it. I kind of said that even though I think I would be better off going back to it, I'm just not going to in principle, because it was hard to quit, and I'm already, I don't want to spend the money and stuff. I'm too frugal. I'm too cheap. But I knew that I was less healthy for having quit smoking. Let's say that. That somehow smoking tobacco on a regular basis was like maintaining this kind of homeostatic health in a very holistic sense. Now, one of the biggest problems with there's a bit of a philosophical problem with the way that we think of medicine, the way that we think of diet, the way that we think of the way that we go about assessing whether or not a given X is healthy or unhealthy or neutral. And let me explain it like this, right? So if you look at it in a vacuum, in a very atomistic way, yes, it is a true fact that putting any kind of smoke into your lung on a regular basis is going to be detrimental to your health. Okay, fair enough, right? We grant that. However, that kind of vacuous or atomistic way of looking at a given variable in relating it to the health consequences is abstract it's not the way that things actually work. It's not the way the health is much more holistic than that. You're missing the forest for the trees when you do that. Cigarettes, number one, as I've said many times, are an incredible tool for stress reduction. And I mean, like, I'm kind of stressed out. I'm pent up. You guys can hear it a little bit when I'm talking, because I've been at work. I've been talking to people. I've been fucking on, socially interacting with all these different people. I've been trying to manage all these different factors. And so I'm kind of tensed up. I'm pent up right now. The very second that the first puff that I'm going to take enters my lungs, 90% of that stress will dissipate. It's there's nothing else equivalent to it in the world. It's literally like a fucking orgasm, more than an orgasm. It's like the greatest release, and no orgasm I've ever had comes close to that feeling when all the stress just dissipates when you're smoking. Number two, it really manages your metabolism. And anytime you can eat less, you're in a better position, because our food itself is more carcinogenic probably than the tobacco. Like, all of the food is carcinogenic. It's all causing inflammation. It's all causing the buildup of free radicals. It's all causing tons of problems. Arthritis in your joints, pre-diabetes, fucks up your libido, everything like that. It's all full of estrogen. You don't need to eat nearly as much. So I've just stopped going to eating before bed since I've been smoking. And it's not that I don't even want to eat before I go to bed. I don't even think about it. I'm just not hungry at that time anymore. And so my whole face has leaned out in the course of like not even 2 months. You can see my cheekbones now. I look better. People are complimenting me on my looks. They're saying, man, you look way better. You really look good. Wow. What's different? And I've been arguing with this guy, A. Wyatt Mann, he's like a dietary anti-realist. He eats Costco pizza every single day. He's a fucking power lifter guy. Every single day he eats a Costco pizza, and he's like in good shape or whatever, because he's not natty. But the thing with this is he's making kind of like a philosophical confusion, where he'll say that goy feed is better for you than fruits and vegetables. Now, in one sense, he is actually correct. In another sense, he's incorrect. And so when people argue, people might hear you say that Costco pizza is better for you than a banana. They might say, that sounds outlandish. That sounds just like flagrantly untrue. How can that be true? There's two different senses in which you can mean that. You can mean it in the sense of like the vacuous, abstract, the atomistic sense, where you just look at the nutritional profile of a given article of food and assess it wholly irrespective of any particular individual's energy needs, dietary needs, what kind of task the food will be converted into fuel for the purpose of performing, etc. And he said, if you had to survive on like an island, for example, what would be better to survive on? Like a banana, or like a glass of maple syrup, for example. And it's the latter, right? The maple syrup would give you a lot more energy. It is high glycemic food. It's going to give you a lot of energy to function and perform. It doesn't have any real nutrients in it that I'm aware of. It doesn't have any vitamins. It doesn't have, no micronutrients, anything like that. If you were to assess these things one on one, obviously you would say that the banana wins out. The fruit, the vegetable, whatever it is, kale is better for you than a piece of Wonder Bread, a bowl of kale. It's obviously better for you, but you've sort of like abstracted yourself out of the equation, and we do the exact same thing when it comes to cigarette smoke. It's like I'm actually offsetting my runaway metabolism and also my insane level of stress by putting this carcinogen into my lungs twice a day. In a kind of an offset ratio, the cigarettes are winning out health-wise. They're actually a net positive for my health. That doesn't mean to say that it's going to be this is going to be universally the case for everybody. Like, that would be a cum hoc fallacy. It's not a cum hoc fallacy. I'm saying for me, it's healthy. You understand? And the last point I want to make is that I'm not planning at all to go back to cigarettes. I had never smoked a pipe before. And I know it's a little bit like hipsterish. It's always like these kind of like lumberjack soy tards that are like, have these beards and curly mustaches, and they're like, wearing a toupee or whatever, and they're like smoking a pipe. I get that, but I don't really care. I'm not gonna like whatever. People can try to like associate it as that. I'm using it for the pure utility of it. So I could give a fuck if like hipsters made it look dumb or whatever. Using a pipe prevents me from like chain smoking, which is one thing I do want to avoid. I just want to smoke at like key times during the day. I usually smoke the pipe twice a day. Once in like the morning or mid-afternoon, and then once at night, and that's it. The odd time I'll have 3 bowls a day. The pipe bowl smokes a lot longer too. It usually smokes for 20 to 30 minutes depending how you pack it. And there's a bit of an art to it. Like, you got to dry the stuff out. You got to put it out to dry in open air for like 20 minutes to a few hours so it's not too wet. You got to, you got to take care of your pipe. You got to like clean it when it needs it. You got to store it a certain way. So it's way more like artful. It's way more highbrow than just like cigarettes are kind of grug. They make your fingers all yellow. They make your teeth all yellow and stuff. And they get all like toward the end of it, even if you're not like N-word lipping it, like, it still gets soggy by the end. All that heat has passed through it. The thing's yellow. It's totally soaked in like residue and stuff by the end, and they stink on your hand. It's cigarettes are really custy, and I don't ever want to go back to cigarettes. They're too easy to chain smoke. I like how smoking a pipe is like a bit of a process. It's a little bit arduous. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. Same thing with vapes. I would never use a vape. It's too easy to do it in your house because it doesn't produce that like really gross thing where it like ruins the house. But if you smoke indoors, like, the vapor will dissipate in a way where it's like not, you wouldn't really know somebody smokes a vape in the house. If they stopped doing it for a week, you wouldn't be like, oh, this is like a smoker's house. But when people smoke like actual like cigarettes in the house, it does have that effect. So the vape is too easy to smoke on the go. It's too easy to chain smoke. I don't want to get into all of that. I just want to use this as like a tool, not something that's like all day from the time I wake up. So honestly, I recommend you guys start smoking. I haven't even gotten into the cognitive benefits of it. Like, I'm able to just think so much more clearly when I read, when I study, I'm just more calm. I'm more tranquil. I can take in more information. I can sit for longer periods of time. It regulates my ADHD, regulates my focus. It helps with my memory. I noticed my memory's gotten better since I've been smoking again. So the list goes on and on and on and on. Like smoking is just, it's a godsend. It truly is. Like Bixnude said, it's the white man's thing. It's our thing. Tobacco's ours. And we're meant to use it. We're meant to live with this. It's a godsend. It really is. So anyways, dismal days indeed.